I get to do some really cool stuff, and over the course of the past month, I've done some really cool stuff, like being able to go to Southeast Game Exchange as a special guest. This was my third Southeast Game Exchange, and it's always one of my favorite events of the year. And if you've never been to a Southeast Game Exchange or heard about this event, it's a very retro-focused event. Basically, a ton of vendors from across the country get together and sell literally decades worth of different consoles, games, memorabilia, which is the thing that I like the most. But there's also a pretty big art presence as well for people that are just in the community and love making very cool stuff. And I did buy some very cool stuff, which we'll talk about more in a minute. And I have a little sneak peek here in the corner. If you didn't notice, it's a PlayStation 1 with a screen on it, now in the bookshelf. Super excited about that. But one of the coolest parts of this year's event is that I got hit up by the organizers and they said, hey, we know you're coming down as a special guest. Would you be willing to spend 2 days here? We'll put you up in a hotel and you can interview 2 famous voice actors. Yeah. I'm cool with that. So I had the chance to host the Q&A panels of Daisuke Tsuji and Shelley Blond. Now, if you don't know either of those people, Daisuke Tsuji is the voice and the motion capture of Jin Sakai in Ghost of Tsushima, and Shelley Blond is the original voice of Lara Croft in the original Tomb Raider from way back in the day. When I get the chance to interview people like that, I feel like I made it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a guy that sits in a spare bedroom that happens to have some cool stuff in it, yapping about games, up there on a stage talking to some super cool people. Now, if you want to catch the entire Q&A sessions, I put them both up on the channel. They're both about 45 minutes apiece, give or take. But just 2 of the most fantastic people I've ever had the pleasure of talking with. Now, beyond the Q&A panels that I had the chance to be a part of, there were tons of events and activities and obviously thousands of games at Southeast Game Exchange. I mean, this was a 3-day event this year. The first time they've done 3 days. We're talking an entire esports section, a Halo championship. There's wrestling on Sundays. There was an entire row of retro arcade machines and some modern arcade machines thrown in there too. You had tabletop games. I think there was a jigsaw puzzle challenge. Tons of talent as well, by the way. You could meet voice actors from Resident Evil. You could meet tons of content creators that were invited like me. It was just one of those events where if you are moderately interested in the gaming space and gaming culture, you can probably find something to have a good time at Southeast Game Exchange with. But beyond the content creators and the voice actors and the panels and all the events and the cool stuff you can go and actually do, Southeast Game Exchange is really about exchanging games. That's why people go. That's the meat of the event. And just doing this walkthrough, you can see how much stuff people bring. And it's also part coming to sell their stuff and kind of parse back that collection. But then there's also a part of this that's really about, hey, look at this cool thing that I have. Isn't this thing really cool? By the way, you could buy it for $8,000 if you want. No one's gonna do that. So let's all just gawk at it and talk about how cool it is. And it's that kind of energy that I love from events like this, because yeah, it's cool to come and show off the cool stuff we collect. I love coming and seeing stuff like a giant life-sized God of War. Absolutely, hook me up. This giant display of cardboard standees. I love cardboard standees, and that's kind of my fault, and you'll see that in a minute when I talk about what I picked up. I love marketing material, like any kind of posters, GameStop signs, anything from especially stores that are defunct like Funko Land. You hit me with some of that stuff, I will throw down the cash. I want that in the collection. And no doubt about it, I'm gonna stop and talk to you to figure out where you got this to begin with, because I love the story. The kind of stories where my cousin was a manager at a Target in 2002 and had this awesome Game Boy sign. Here, do you wanna buy it? I love that kind of stuff. And on top of that, when you're having these conversations, you just talk to some of the coolest, most passionate people or their families. A lot of the time, this is kind of a family-run operation where they'll come rent a booth and be parsing back the family collection. You know, I was talking to one family where their dad was the mascot, and he was like, I don't really know a lot about all this stuff. My son kind of does it, but we come and we spend time here together as a family, and this is our first time coming to Southeast Game Exchange. Those are the kind of interactions that I love having, and that's why I was lucky to be a special guest this year, so I could kind of avoid the crowds, still have that kind of interaction. And yeah, I did pick up some pretty cool stuff along the way. I was going through this guy's booth, and apparently he had bought out somebody's entire collection a couple of months prior that literally had hundreds, if not thousands of games in it. We're talking dozens of consoles ranging from really stuff in the 80s all the way up to the Xbox, PlayStation 2 kind of era. And so amongst that, I found the PlayStation 1 with the screen, and this is one of the coolest little devices out there, and it's kind of got a laptop clamshell approach that just snaps on the back of the PlayStation 1. It's got pass-through AV as well on the back, and he was selling it for $160. I checked online, that was a really good price, and it's not in immaculate condition. You know, it doesn't look like it's brand new out of the box, but it's functional, no scratches on the screen, the speakers still work in it. This was just too cool to pass up because I knew it would have a great spot on the shelf. So if I get some downtime at work on the weekend or something like that, I can throw my feet up, pop in a PlayStation 1 game, and just play it right there on the shelf. So to have one of these fully functional is one of those things where as time goes on, fewer and fewer of them are going to be floating around out there that are fully functional, just ready to pick up and play right off the shelf, no kind of fixing or repair required. So when I saw one, I went ahead and splashed the cash. And you know, with that, I had to kind of revamp the PlayStation 1 collection, which I've kept a lot of stuff from my childhood, but there were some things floating around out there that I did want to go ahead and grab. Now, the first thing I got was a disc-only copy of Rayman for I think $12 because I had a case for Rayman that I had gotten from an estate sale last year that didn't have the game in it, so I'd kind of been casually hunting around for a copy of Rayman. I found one hunting around on the show floor, so to be able to have that fully complete in the collection with the manual and everything, very nice addition. And of course, I wanted to pick up some stuff I hadn't had as well, including an original copy of Wipeout. And you can see this was priced at $20, but I did a little bundle deal. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But the thing I love about Wipeout is the vibe. I mean, the aesthetic, the look, the font they've picked, all of the little details that make Wipeout what it is have always really drawn me to this franchise. I love Wipeout 2048 on the PlayStation Vita. They have the Omega Collection on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 as well. But this one is really where it all kind of started. So to find a complete copy of this, fully disc scratch free, I should say, just a really, really cool one to have in the collection. And with that, this was labeled at $20. I did a little bundle deal to clear out some of the filler that they had, and I got a copy of Asteroids and a copy of Centipede. And this is during a really interesting time whenever classics were getting these kind of like 3D modern remakes for the PlayStation 1. And this is a couple that I always wanted to pick up. So I had played the demos of these back in the day. I believe they were both included on Jam Packs along the way, which is why my name here on the channel is Jam Pack Sam, because I talk about a little bit of everything. A little lore tidbit for you there. Now we get to the more modern stuff, including a copy of Burnout Revenge. Now, I love the Burnout games, specifically Burnout 3 Takedown, my favorite racing game potentially of all time. Just a fantastic game. But Revenge, not bad either. It's kind of got that gritty mid-2000s vibe to it, which of course is very right for the time period. But the cool thing about this one is that it is backwards compatible on the Xbox Series X. So I grabbed this to be able to play it on that, but I also have an Xbox 360 hooked up behind me, so I can throw this in and play it anytime I want to relive some of those classic racing memories. But Burnout Revenge, very good game. And yes, I am still one of the few, the proud, that still picks up the games from Xbox One or Series X from time to time. And if I'm buying new games going forward at this point, probably gonna buy them digitally, just because that's gonna be an easier way to take them with you going into future console generations that more than likely aren't going to have physical copies for them because you're not gonna have a disc drive. So I think digital is going to be the future, whether we want it to or not, which is a hot take considering I just came from Southeast Game Exchange, an event fully centered around, you know, having physical copies. But I did find a couple of physical Xbox games I still did want to pick up, including Tempest 4000, sealed by the way, has never been opened. And it's not going to remain that way because I do want to play this one, but I haven't actually seen too much about this game. I just love Tempest. I mean, this is one of those classic games from the 80s that's been brought forward and iterated on over the years. But this one gets back to the roots of what the actual gameplay feels like, and it also has a very cool look to it. So excited to give that one a shot. And kind of in the same breath, Geometry Wars 3 Dimensions Evolved. I've never played a Geometry Wars game, but when it comes to those arcade gamey games, these two really caught my eye, and maybe it was the feel of the weekend, the nostalgia, the retro vibes getting to me. But I had to grab a couple of these and didn't spend too much on them, so they were a couple of budget pickups, but ones that I know that I'll enjoy playing. So those are the games that I grabbed, but I did spend money on other stuff too. I almost forgot to mention that Secret Castle, one of the vendors at the event, had a steelbook copy of Battlefield 2042, no disc inside, literally just the steel case itself, in a free pile, because you couldn't give this thing away. But I'm one of the 5 people that really enjoyed Battlefield 2042. I played it at launch. It was fine, just got better over time, and I'm happy to give this bad boy a good home, even though I don't have a physical copy. But maybe I'll get one, because you can probably find them for $3 now. But on top of games, I absolutely love picking up print. We're talking magazines, any kind of guidebooks, any special editions of either of those. So, you know, whenever I saw an Oblivion Game Informer, I had to grab that for the collection. We're not talking Oblivion Remastered or any kind of DLC. This is literally the Oblivion Game Informer. So that's going to be right at home in the collection. And I would open it right now. I'm probably going to throw in some B-roll, but there's actually a gentleman's address on the front of it. So I'm intentionally covering it up to make sure that we don't dox this guy. But hey, Kenneth, thanks for subscribing to Game Informer and somehow getting this thing into my hands, because I'm very grateful to have it. And I found a couple of other cool deals on print pieces too. You had a Game Pro with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on the cover. We had a Metroid Prime 2 Echoes Nintendo Power, a Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX guide. I mean, come on, this is pretty great. But going back to what I said earlier, I love signage. I love memorabilia. Anything that makes my room feel more like a mid-2000s GameStop, I absolutely want that, or I at least want to hear more about it. I want to talk to you about it. I'm in love with that kind of thing. So I had to buy this Metroid Prime poster. Now this is now hanging directly above my desk setup, and I love this for so many reasons. The rating pending label on the bottom right, the GameCube itself, the silhouette of Samus, the $99 bonus bundle. I love the way that looks and the way that it feels, and it just really captures what a Best Buy ad would look like around 2003 or so. And with that poster, they threw in other posters too, including 2 Metroid Prime pinball posters, which are incredible, and this Liza P poster that I threw up on the back of the door amongst some others, but I'm a huge Liza P guy, so to be able to have that one and to swap it out and kind of keep the room feeling fresh over time, yeah, very happy with that one. And then much like that, to the left, a DS ad that was clipped out of a magazine, and this is kind of where we start getting into more of the art stuff, where this guy had gone through, found old ads in Nintendo Power magazines, perfectly clipped them out and framed them, and I think I picked this up for $5-10, something like that. And it just really exudes that early 2000s vibe. I mean, it looks like something I would have seen back in the day. So I love to have this kind of thing up on my wall just for that little nostalgia hit when I'm coming in and out of the room. Totally worth picking up just for decor. And going back to the memorabilia side for a minute, I found these cardboard standees for popular games that came out between probably 2009 and 2011. This guy had an entire stack of these that were broken down, and I picked up Max Payne 3, Spec Ops: The Line, and Borderlands 2. And the reason I got these is because while I don't have room for them right now, I will in the future, because we're talking about getting a house, figuring out what the next step is once we get out of the apartment. And so once I have more room to really build out a game room, to build out the man cave, I'm gonna have tons of signage that I can put in different spots. And so I had to pick these up because, again, when are you gonna see some stuff like this? This is the beauty of Southeast Game Exchange, because while you do get people bringing tons of games, as in literally thousands of games, you also find some cool stuff like this that doesn't just pop up on Facebook Marketplace every day. So very cool, very grateful to have these. Now that's all the official stuff, the real games, the real advertisements, the real hardware. But a big part of going to Game Exchange as well is being able to connect with tons of artists that are in the community that are kind of doing their own thing or bringing that passion to life in a different way beyond just finding, collecting, and reselling cool stuff that's popped up over the years. And I found some very cool stuff. If you've watched any video I've made in the past probably 3 years, you've seen an Xbox sign in the background that's always lit up. I have it come on automatically anytime I turn on my office lights, and it's just awesome. It's one of those things that I love to have in the collection, and Adam, Retrobeard, makes these himself. He's a super nice guy, super high quality piece of art, by the way, that almost looks one-to-one with what you would have gotten from back in the day. He does a ton of custom work, really awesome guy if you're looking for stuff like that. But his fiance, who he met through this online art community, also happens to be super talented. She goes by Pixel Parts on Instagram, and I went ahead and picked up this Xbox Controller S breakdown. Now the way she does this is she takes old hardware that might not be working anymore, and she'll break it down and make this kind of framed schematic using the controller itself of how the inner workings of an Xbox Controller S actually function to make it happen when you play the game. I love this for so many reasons, because I love the Xbox, because I love that nostalgic green that just really drives it home, and then I love the fact that it's made by hand by someone in the community that I know, and it's just great to have on the wall. Absolutely going to be there forever, 100%. I almost forgot to mention they threw in this PS2 keychain that's literally modeled after a fat PS2. Not retro or anything, but just super cool, so thanks for that. But the final pickup from Southeast Game Exchange 2025 might actually be my favorite pickup, and that would be these little miniature Game Boy Color boxes, and these actually came with the games, so shout out to Minibox Gaming 64 on Instagram. He makes these mini boxes that are recreated prints of what the boxes looked like back in the day, but they don't take as much room up on the shelf. So if you collect Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games, Super Nintendo games, NES games, he prints off these materials, puts them in these very nice kind of reinforced boxes, so you get the beauty of the box art that you had back in the day without having to keep up with pricey cardboard that might be harder to find as the years go on, or have to find space for all of these big in-box games. These look super cool. They are very clean, high quality prints, and the prices were actually really good. Now I got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Frogger, Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX, and Mrs. Pac-Man Special Edition. And the cool thing about this for me is that I owned all of these games as a kid. So I get to see the box art that I remember from going to Target and picking these up with my mom whenever I was a kid, whenever I see them on my desk or on a bookshelf or just scattered around the office. And I can open these up and play the games whenever I want. Now, the cool thing with SEGE is that he actually had some of these boxed up, ready to go with the games in the boxes. But if you have a collection of games that you need boxes for, or you want to get a couple of mini boxes for yourself, he does sell them a la carte. You don't have to buy them with the cart. That might have even just been a SEGE thing, but you can find out more at miniboxgaming.com. Highly recommend, super high quality stuff here and just the nicest guy. So big thanks for these. I appreciate that. Also, huge shout out to these coasters because there was a guy selling these and I think they were 2 for $6. So I got 4, 2 for me and 2 for my brother-in-law. And he had PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 3 games, original Xbox games, 360 games. And while we're talking about drinks and drinkware, I forget where I got this, but somebody threw in an EB Games koozie for free. So that's super cool. And there it is, my Southeast Game Exchange haul for 2025. Absolutely some of the coolest stuff that I have ever had the chance to get my hands on, and I'm super grateful to have that in the collection. But beyond the games and the memorabilia, the memories from this year are really what will stand out of my mind over time, because how often do you get to talk to people like Daisuke Tsuji and Shelley Blond? I mean, these are two people that have had huge impacts on modern and retro gaming respectively, and to be able to host panels and hear stories from people that have been so deeply impacted by the work that these people have done, I was just grateful to be a part of that. And you combine that with the retro gaming areas and the Halo championships and being able to hunt for thousands of games, Southeast Game Exchange is just an experience unlike anything else. Of course, if you want to go for yourself next year, they've already got dates locked in. I will put those up here. You can find more at their website, and it's absolutely worth making the trip. If you're in driving distance, if you're hardcore and want to fly in, I guarantee you, you are gonna have a good time. And I'll see you there next year. But hey, if you're new here on the channel and you like what you see and what you hear, hit that subscribe button for videos like this and gaming news shorts throughout the week to keep you in the loop, and I'll catch you on the next one.